Hi and welcome to this Junior Cycle Higher Level Maths revision video. In this video we're going to look at algebra word problems and specifically look at simultaneous equations. We're going to use some past junior certificate exam questions from both the ordinary and higher level paper. So this question is from the Junior Cert Ordinary Level 2012 Paper 1 and it will involve Gemma and John and a new computer game. So John scores 2 Bengas minus 3 penalty points. His total score is 7 points. He made an equation 2x minus 3y equals 7. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit more. So John scored 2 Bengas, which in the formula was 2x. So therefore each Benga he has said is worth x. Minus or take away 3 penalties, which is 3y, which means each penalty is represented by y. His total score, so when he puts these together, it equals 7. So now they've asked us to do the same for Gemma. Gemma scores 5 Begas minus 5 penalty points for a total of 20 points. So Gemma will look like 5 Bengas, which are x, minus, so that's subtract, 5 penalties, that's 5, and remember our penalties are y, and it will give her a total of 20 points. So that is an equation representing Gemma's score. So use simultaneous equations to find the number of points for a Benga and a number of points for a penalty. So remember, we're looking for x and we're looking for y. We have 2 equations. The first equation we were given in the question, 2x minus 3y equals 7. The second equation, 5x minus 5y equals 20. Now we want to work on these and try solve for x and solve for y. So there's a few different ways you can do this. You can eliminate x or eliminate y, and both are going to need to multiply both equations. So I'm going to work on y's. So I'm going to multiply this equation by minus 5. And what that will do is it'll give us a coefficient of y equal to 15. I'm going to multiply the second equation by just a 3, which will give this coefficient of y a minus 15. So I'll have a plus 15y and a minus 15y, which will cancel out. So be careful with your multiplication. I get minus 10x, minus by minus is plus 15y equals minus 35. We have 15x minus 15y equals 60. Now we add each of these, but the y's will eliminate. So I'm going to finish it up here. We have 15x minus 10y, which is 5x, and that equals 60. Take away 35, which is 25. We then divide both sides by 5 and we get x equals 5. And that represents the amount of points you get for a Benga. Now, we can go back to either of our equations. Doesn't matter which. I'm going to go back to the one we were given, which was 2x minus 3y equals 7. We're going to then sub in, instead of x, we're going to put in 5, and then we're going to solve for y. So that gives me 10 minus 3y equals 7. If we take away if we take away 10 from both sides, we're left with minus 3. And we divide both sides by minus 3, we'll get y equals 1. And that is what each penalty is worth. Now, that gives us our 2 answers. And I'm going to highlight them. In a question, it's good to highlight if you think they could get lost. But I want to mention something that could have been done that would have made that part 2 a little bit easier. And that is, at this point here, you might have noticed that each of our terms has a common factor, and there is a common 5. So what I could have done to simplify this was divide across by 5, and that would have given me x minus y equals 4. Now, am I allowed to do that? Yes, because as long as we're keeping the balance, as long as we're doing the same thing to both sides, then that's absolutely fine. How would this have impacted the second part of the question? Now the two equations are 2x minus 3y equals 7 and x minus y equals 4. Because we have a simpler equation, we now only need to multiply one of our equations. So for example, I could multiply the second equation by minus 3 to give us a coefficient of plus 3 here. And that's all we would have needed to do. So it's just a little bit simpler. So by spotting that, it makes your question a little bit easier to work with. Let's see if we'll get the same answer working this way. We should, but just to show you that we will. So we have 2x minus 3x, which is minus x, or minus 1x if you prefer. And that is 7 minus 12, which is minus 5. And if we have minus x equals minus 5, then x equals 5, which is the same as we got before. That's a bingo. So what I've done there is you can divide both sides by minus 1. You can multiply both sides by minus 1, but the easiest way to think of it is really changing the signs on both sides of the equation. I'm now going to use the simpler little equation, x minus y equals 4. So 5 minus y equals 4. So minus y equals minus 1. So my final answer would be y equals 1, which gives us our answer for penalty. So that is the exact same answers that we got with the more complex equation from part I, but it's just to see what a difference it can make to simplify your sum if you can spot things like this, dividing across. So this is the Junior Certificate Ordinary Level 2014 Paper 1. 1,000 people attended a concert. Of these, X were adults and Y were children. Use this information to write an equation in X and Y. Well, if 1,000 people attended the concert, there are X adults. So we have X, the number of adults, plus the number of children will equal the total number of people that are at the concert. So X plus Y equals 1,000. Part 2, an adult's ticket costs €10 and a child's ticket costs €5. The total amount collected through ticket sales is 8,750. Use this information to write another equation in X and Y. Okay, so we know that there were X adults and each adult paid €10. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 10 by X to figure out the total amount that was gotten from adult tickets. 10 by X is 10X. Then we look at the child's ticket. So there was €5 per ticket and there was Y children. So 5 by Y is 5Y. So the total amount from adult tickets plus the amount from children tickets should give us a total of 8,750. Now it says solve your two equations to find the number of adults, X, and the number of children, Y, who attended the concert. Now, before we do this, if you've gone through our previous example, you might notice how we could make this a little bit easier. So if you want to make this a bit easier, you can divide this equation across by 5. That will give us 2x plus y equals 1750. Now that'll just make the simultaneous equation part in part 3 a little bit easier. We can call this equation 1, we can call this equation 2. So we have x plus y equals 1,000. We have 2x plus y equals 1,750. To eliminate the y's, we simply need to change the signs. So I'm going to change the signs of equation 1. Now I can do this by simply changing all of the signs. It's the same as multiplying by -1. So then my y's eliminate, and we're left with 2x minus x, which is x or 1x, and then 1,750, take away 1,000. So I might just clean this up so you can properly see the 1 there. So we're left with 750. And that is the number of adults in this question. So then we go back. I'm going to go back to equation 1. X plus y equals 750. No, sorry, equals 1,000. And we know that x is 750. So 750 plus y equals 1,000. Take away 750 from both sides, and y equals 250. And that's the number of children at the concert. Now let's look at how this kind of question could be asked at higher level. This is from sample questions. They were labelled additional questions released in 2015, but for junior certificate higher level. Mark works 2 jobs. He works in Bob's Bakery and Kira's Cafe. He is paid $11.50 an hour to work in Bob's Bakery and $9.30 an hour to work in Kira's Cafe. Okay, so both of these are important. $11.50 and $9.30. In 1 week, he worked a total of 34 hours and was paid €362.40. How many hours? Find out how many hours he worked in Bob's Bakery this week. Now, this is pretty much the same style question as what we've just answered at ordinary level, but the real difference is that we don't have that structure leading us through. So we're going to have to come up with the letters, we're going to have to create the 2 equations, and then we're going to have to solve this. The reason we know that there are 2 letters, 2 unknowns, is because we have the hours he worked in Bob's Bakery, which we can let be B, and the hours in Kira's Cafe, which we're going to let be C. Now, you could call that X and Y, it doesn't matter, but because they've called it Bob's and Kira's, it would make sense to use B and C. So the first equation is he worked a total of 34 hours. So the amount of hours in Bob's Bakery, B, plus the amount of hours in Kira's Cafe, C, should add to 34. The second piece of information we know, and I like to take it off as we use it because then we know, is there anything we haven't used that we should take into account? So the second thing we know is how much he was paid. So if he worked B hours in Bob's Bakery and he's paid $11.50 an hour, he earns $11.50 multiplied by B, the number of hours, which is $11.50B. In Kira's Cafe, he's going to earn $9.30 for each hour, and he worked C hours, so it's 9.30 by C, or just 9.30C, and that gives a total of 362.40. Now, these equations are not the lovely equations that we have seen in the ordinary level questions. We have some decimals there. It's a little bit trickier. So what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate C. Now, why am I choosing to eliminate C? Because we could eliminate B, but we want to find how many hours he works in Bob's Bakery, which is B. So I want B in my answer, so let's get rid of C. So how to eliminate C is we're going to multiply our first, and we'll call that equation 1. So our first equation, we're going to multiply that by a negative 9.30. So that will give us the same coefficient but a different sign. So that's going to be minus 930b minus 930c equals, and then we have 34 by 930, which gives us minus 31620. Nothing has happened to equation 2, so we've 1150b plus 930c equals 362.40. So our c's eliminate. We have 1150 take away 930, and that leaves us with 220b, and that equals 362.40 take away 316.20, which gives us 46.20. To finish it, we divide by the coefficient of b, which is 220, or just 2.2 if you prefer. So when we do that division, we get a final answer of b equals 21, which is the hours worked in Bob's Bakery. Now, you could have worked out C instead. It would have been the same amount of work, but then you would have had to go and substitute back in order to find B. So this method was just a little bit shorter. So this is a question from the 2020 Junior Cycle Sample Assessment Items. A gardener, looking at a rectangular flower bed in his garden, commented, "If I made that bed 2 meters wider and 3 meters longer, it would have been 64 meters squared larger. But if I made it 3 meters wider and 2 meters longer, it would have been 68 meters squared larger. What is the length and width?" And it says of the garden, but I'm pretty sure it must mean the flower bed, because that's what we're talking about. Okay, so represent the situation using diagrams and use mathematics to solve the problem. Okay, so I'm going to use a few diagrams, because when you can draw it out, it makes it a little bit easier, especially since we're talking about areas and rectangles. So here is my original flower bed. I have no idea what the length and width is. Now, we could argue over what is length, what is width. I'm going to talk about this as X, and I'm going to talk about this as Y. Okay, so here is my X, and here is my Y. They're different. I then think of the first update. So the first update says if I made it 2 meters wider. So again, it doesn't matter which one you've taken as wider and longer, because we're going to do two situations. But I would see this as y plus 2 and 3 meters longer, so x plus 3. It's going to be 64 meters squared larger. Okay, so here we get x multiplied by y, and it gives us an area. So let's call this area A for the minute. This is going to be area plus 64. The second update is the opposite. So it's made wider by 3 meters and then longer by 2 meters. And that's going to be the original area plus 68. So this gives us a sense of what we have. So in our original, we have x multiplied by y equals the area. Here in update 1, we have x plus 3 times y plus 2 equals the area plus 64. In update 2, we have x plus 2 by y plus 3 equals the area plus 68. Now, we have xy equal to a. Let's multiply out what we get for update 1 and update 2. So let's split our bracket, x times y plus 2 plus 3 times y plus 2. I'm going to ignore the right-hand side just for a minute. I get xy plus 2x plus 3y plus 6 equals a plus 64. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is replace, instead of the xy, I'm going to replace that with a. So I have a plus 2x plus 3y plus 6 equals a plus 64. Now, if we take away an a from both sides, we're left with a linear equation, 2x plus 3y plus 6 equals 64. I'm going to have two unknowns here, which means it's simultaneous equations, which means I'm going to bring the numbers over to the right-hand side. So you get 2x plus 3y, and that equals 58, and that is equation 1. Let's do the same thing for update 2. So again, we're going to multiply out by splitting the brackets. Y plus 3 plus 2 times y plus 3 equals a plus 68. Xy plus 3x plus 2y plus 6 equals a plus 68. I am replacing xy with an a, so a plus 3x plus 2y plus 6 equals a plus 68. Taking away an a from both sides leaves us with 3x plus 2y plus 6 equals 68. Take away a 6 from both sides, and we're left with 3x plus 2y equals 62, and that is equation 2. Now we can solve these simultaneous equations. So we need to choose one of the variables to eliminate. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to take y, so I'm going to multiply the top by 2, the bottom by -3. That way both the y's will end up with a 6, but one will be a plus and one will be a negative. Okay, so we got 4x plus 6y, and 2 by 58 gives us 116. We get minus 9x minus 6y equals 62 by minus 3 gives us minus 186. So we get minus 5x, the y's cancel, and that equals minus 70. Divide both sides by minus 5, and we end up with x equals 14, and this is meters. Remember, we're looking for the dimensions of the flower bed. Now we choose either equation. I'm going to choose equation 1, and we get 2x plus 3y equals 58. We know that x actually equals 14, so we have two 14s plus 3y equals 58. So we get 28 plus 3y equals 58. Take away 28 from both sides. You don't have to show this vertically. So we get 3y is equal to 30. Divide both sides by 3, and we get y equals 10 meters. So the dimensions of the flower bed originally, so it's 14 meters by 10 meters. That's the dimensions of the flower bed.